Well, thank you guys all for coming to the meeting tonight. We're just gonna go ahead and get started. We weren't really sure if anyone would even show up tonight or not since we had this last week, but thank you for coming. I'm Amy. I live here in Fairfax, and my neighbor Jeff and I were having a conversation over coffee one day, and just thought maybe we should see what other Fairfax residents felt about the possibility of a power plant coming into town. Since it sounds like the last city council meeting was quite heated, I unfortunately couldn't have been there. But we have some information packets in the back. If you weren't able to get one, please grab one. We are just gonna go through the packet, and all of the items are listed, are also on the city website also. So if you don't have a packet or didn't have there, it is all on the website, so.
Hi, my name is Jeff Hins, Fairfax resident, well, just over here on Driftwood. I'm the louder of the two of us,
Sorry.
so I'll be doing the reading tonight. Basically, we're just gonna, some things we learned from last week. We had a really good turnout last week, probably somewhere, I'd say 50
Oh, yeah.
people last week, so good turnout for that. This week, obviously smaller, but again, thank you guys for coming, we do appreciate it. Just gonna kind of go through and highlight the packet. We had a limited number of packets left over. Staples unfortunately had a breakdown today, so they weren't able to make more packets for it. But again, all of this information is available on the city website under the civic portal. So you can go there, click the links. Cynthia's just gonna click through them as we kind of go through. So we'll go through the slides, and then once we're done with the slides, we do have Shane Dodge from the DNR here. Unfortunately, this week, Tony from Lynn County, wasn't able to make it. Lynn County Public Health, right?
Yes.
Yep. So Tony was here last week, so if you'd like to hear some Tony's comments from last week, the YouTube video is on the Fairfax YouTube page. So you can kind of watch the highlights of that from last week if you'd like to. So we'll just kind of click through some of the things that are on or all of the slides that we have here. We'll let Shane talk a little bit, and then we can open it up for conversation. Again, Shane being with the DNR, he was formerly an employee of Lynn County Public Health, so he can speak very intelligently about particulates and other things that have to do with the power plant. When it comes to a lot of the other pieces of the equation that people have questions on, Shane's not really our resource for that. So we're a little limited in some of the resources we have, but wanted to at least have him here to provide the insight that he can to the questions that you have. So we'll just kind of slide through. The first slide just talks about what type of facility they're proposing, which is a natural gas combined cycle facility. So basically just using natural gas and water, basically, to turn the turbine to generate power. The next slide shows kind of the layout of the facility components that it has. I'm not a scientist, so I can't speak intelligently about these things, but it talks about the turbines, the recovery system, the turbine building, different things like that, the air-cooled condenser. So it just goes through the pieces and parts of the plant. This is a letter that Shane helped put together with Lynn County Public Health. And that talks about the terms that are used when a power plant of this nature is going through the steps of the permitting process. So the process that the city of Fairfax is on right now is basically a rewording of the zoning. So the area that this is looking to potentially go in is already zoned industrial. This rewords the zoning so it would allow basically a power plant and then the stack heights that are proposed. So it's just kind of a rewording of the zoning, but this piece of information goes over the steps that they look at for potential construction of the power plant.
Oh, sorry.
All right. This is a letter from Brian from the city water department. Brian talks about the water consumption that would be necessary for this plant. Just kind of a high level, not reading word for word, but touching on some of the bullet points. First and foremost, we are not going to run out of water. Currently, the city can support these quantities with no additional expansion in either water supply or treatment whatsoever. So the existing water facilities that we have can support this plant if it were to go in without any additional needs. The increased water usage in the proposed area would be a benefit to the city to reduce water quality maintenance and capture additional revenue. Water quality was discussed with Alliance team. They showed interest in the possibility of wanting softened water to help with their process, which might be something they would assist with cost-wise, and the whole city would benefit from that. The water infrastructure expansion in the proposed area would also benefit the city by extending water mains to a looping system and therefore extending services closer to future development areas. So if you've seen the proposed future development of Fairfax, it does go to the south with industrial and residential and some commercial as well. Just as a point of reference, I found this interesting. The splash pad that we have uses over 100,000 gallons of water on a normal summer day. So on one particular summer day, it's using 100,000 gallons of water. The proposed usage of this plant is 65 to 70,000 gallons per day. So I was a little surprised by that number. Wastewater portion of it, Alliant knows that a sewage lift station needs to be built in the proposed area to accommodate any development at the proposed site. They already plan on installing that infrastructure to the necessary plan specs for the development, so they would take care of that piece on their own. They do not have any special considerations for waste leaving the plant that could potentially alter our water treatment. The additional wastewater would not present an immediate need for a treatment plant expansion in Fairfax. And with the additional usage, we would be at about 65% of our engineered capacity currently. So that just kind of touches on some of those bullet points for those of you that don't have a packet. This talks about some of the benefits that Fairfax could potentially see with the generating station within the city limits. Again, you know, it's just city land use control and input. So the facility, basically, they would have to have a conversation with the city of Fairfax as far as what that would look like, what would the surrounding area look like, things of that nature. Alliant Energy's continued financial assistance in growing the city's infrastructure needs. The generating station fits into the Big Cedar Industrial Park overall plan. So that area where the data centers are going and stuff like that is called the Big Cedar Industrial Park. Let's see here, where did I leave off then? Great. So the proposed stalls any airport plans to site a new runway closer to Fairfax. I'm sure you guys seen and heard the study that was put on or performed or paid for by the airport, where they talk about the potential impact to what could be future expansion of a runway to the north, and what this might look like in that particular situation. The tax revenue generated is estimated at roughly $350,000 per year to the city. So there is a financial benefit as far as tax revenue is concerned. The continued long-term industrial partnership with stable and respected well-known municipal partner. Power generating stations are regulated by federal, state, local governments in respect to emissions, fuel, and pricing. Alliant Energy, as well as their subsidiaries, are a large employer in Fairfax with 55 employees reporting to work in Fairfax daily. They have several additional employees that support the Fairfax staff on a regular basis, including the Crandic Railway. Alliant Energy donates $5,000 to $10,000 annually to city sports, events, and the fire department. If asked, they respond favorably. So the Alliant is already helping support things that go on in Fairfax. I also did not know that. Estimated water sewer revenue of $32,000 monthly or $390,000 annually. So when you look at the tax benefit of $350,000 and then the wastewater and sewer revenue of $390,000, it's a pretty significant benefit that could come to Fairfax. It's the most technologically advanced plant in the Midwest. So as far as the newest, latest, and greatest technology that goes into it, along with monitoring. Fairfax would have its first industrial user on the newly planned street improvements to 76th Avenue. Alliant will be required to participate in the street upgrade costs based on the plant area. Lower input costs for Alliant already owning the property keeps energy rates low for all end users. So that Alliant has said that this was one of the locations that would allow them, from what I understand, a lower cost to build, which would be a benefit to, the end user if they can save money on the construction cost. Alliant has expressed interest in having treated water delivered to the plant. So there's a possibility they would engage in a cost share with the city to provide soft water, which Brian talked about earlier in his letter. So I don't know if anybody's had a chance to go visit the Marshalltown plant or at least see it from the outside. I drove over a couple of weeks ago just to kind of get an idea of what it looked like at certain distances. This is a truck wash. So as you turn to go towards the facility, there's a truck wash on the kind of upper left corner. To the plant is 2,780 feet. And then if you want to go to, should be picture. So this is from the, they have like a little natural area right outside the plant. It was their construction laydown area when the building was being constructed that they turned into kind of like a natural preserve. So from that location to the plant, 1,169 feet. There's a couple pictures coming up that will make a little bit more sense. So this is a picture of the plant from the truck wash. So standing in the parking lot of the truck wash, looking towards the plant, that's what it looked like. And then this is from that little natural area that they have outside there. It's what that looked like from that vantage point. This was brought up at the last meeting, which I think is a great picture because, you know, in the cold winter months, you will be able to see, you know, the plume coming from the plant. The Marshalltown plant has a bunch of cooling towers off to the side. The proposed plant, potentially for Fairfax, does not have those cooling towers. So the plume to the right would not exist. The stuff emitting from the stacks would. So that's what that could look like in the winter months. There's also a nighttime picture there that's kind of hard to see, but it just shows a daytime and nighttime picture. The distance from the gentleman that took this picture lives in Marshalltown. I reached out to him and talked to him a little bit. The distance from where he took this picture, the road that he was at is 5,000 feet, so it's about a mile away, a little under a mile away. So that's what that could potentially look like in the winter. That was in January of 25. And then this shows the Fairfax annexation boundary. So one of the things that was talked about at the last meeting was potential other locations that Alliant is talking about. Now that they've, what's the word they use? Deprioritized Fairfax location. So in talking about the deprioritization of our location or Fairfax location and moving it around, there has been talk of to the northwest slightly up along Highway 30. And then a little bit more kind of to the west as well, past West Cemetery. So outside of our annexation boundary for current and future, but still really, really close to where we are going to be. And then this is an image that shows the Trevero area and where the proposed plant would be. I'll walk over there in a second. And then this shows the cone or the flight path of the new proposed runway. So this just kind of touches on that Alliant study again and what this could potentially look like. So I'll walk over and just kind of put this out. So as your Trevero here, this is the hashed area where they're talking about putting the plant. This is the runway, future runway potentially, and then this is the flight cone for that runway. So as you can see, Fairfax's future industrial is here, future residential is here, future commercial is here. So everything that we are looking, the city is looking to do going to the south is affected definitely by the runway and that flight path. But solely focusing on the power plant, this would be the location that they are looking at. So. That's just another slide showing the flight path. What we got left?
Just their email.
And then this is the letter from Alliant that we got last week, that literally the day, I think the day of the meeting, about their deprioritizing the Fairfax location. So we just wanted to make sure that was on there. There was a KCRG article, I'm sorry, a Gazette article that came out today that talked about potential locations. There was a supervisor, Lynn County supervisor. She lives over just kind of off 20 Point Railroad, talking about how one of the proposed locations she's aware of is in her quote unquote backyard, which would put it somewhere along 80th and Highway 30 is my understanding. I reached out to her, I did not get a call back. to find out what location she was told this could potentially go. But realizing that it could go there, I think a lot of us know that in Fairfax, it's pretty windy to the northwest most of the time. But again, just information that I had gotten. So, that's all the slides. Again, those are all available online. We'll let Shane kind of talk a little bit and then open it up for some questions and see where that goes from there.
I'm gonna go around the court.
Good idea. Sorry.
Yeah. So I actually have a presentation, I'm not gonna bore you with the thing, so what we did last time, we kind of kept this as more of like a modern fireside chat, so if you have specific questions about air quality, these types of plants, how we evaluate these types of plants, to determine whether or not they can come into an area or not, that's kind of how we played it before, but I'm open to, whatever you guys need, honestly. So let me first introduce myself. Shane Dodge with Iowa DNR. I'm the Environmental Protection Supervisor for Northeast Iowa. I don't do hardcore air quality work anymore. My team does the compliance enforcement work in Northeast Iowa for all environmental programs. So we're the folks who show up to do your compliance inspection on your public water supplies, wastewater systems, animal feeding operations, stuff like that. So I do remember some of the stuff that I used to do for public health on the air quality side. So somewhat well versed on air quality issues. So, you got questions or whatever that come up, shout them out, happy to try to answer them. If I don't have the answer, I'm happy to circle back and get you the answer. So I just want to make sure that I'm available to, try to, give whatever information out there. I'm not for or against the facility, I'm really just here to try to, answer your questions if I can. So that's gonna be my role today. Is there anything else we need?
No, just if anybody has any questions they'd like to meet with.
I just have a quick question. So they keep talking about different plants going up kind of everywhere.
Yeah.
And I know I came last time. So my question is, when do you guys step in, or the state, where they say, hey, this is gonna affect our water quality, this is going to affect our air quality? Because you were saying last time that you have to abide by certain levels.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
I know they're redoing the coal plant, which is actually a good thing. And then they're proposing this, then I've heard they're proposing to reopen
Right.
Arnold and then maybe have another data center over there. So when does all of this stop?
Sure.
Or when do we hit those limits, and who's watching out for that?
Yeah, that's a very complex question.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
Yes.
So let's look at it kind of from an air quality standpoint. So in this air shed, if you will, there's lots of industrial facilities that you guys all know. So anytime a new facility comes in or an existing facility gets modified, they have to go through this permitting process. And part of that permitting process is evaluating the emissions from those plants first as a standalone. So will the emissions from this plant have a significant impact on the surrounding area? And we measure them against national ambient air quality standards. And they're geographically consistent. So the same national ambient air quality standards that apply in Washington DC or LA apply in Fairfax, Iowa. So what we'll do is we'll go through this whole complex. We'll set up a dispersion model. So it's a set of calculations that predict what this source or sources, what kind of impact it's going to have. And if it is significant, then you have to do interactive source modeling. So you have to include all the other sources in the airshed and run this model. And then if there's hot spots, if you will, then we have to figure out who's most culpable. The models are very good at doing that type of work. So they can identify, okay, this is a contribution from these stats. These are the ones that have the biggest ones. So those are the folks we'll work with to reduce those. In projects like this, where it's a major source of air emissions, so they go through this process called prevention of significant deterioration. It's a kind of a normal, permitting process on steroids, if you will. So not only does the facility have to show that they don't exceed max, in the PSD program, it sets a baseline level of emissions in areas that meet standards. So your air is clean. And any new development that has to go through that program can only degrade it by an increment, if you will. So there's a set increment that says, okay, you can come in and you've shown us that you don't exceed public health standards, but you also can't degrade the air quality by this much. So they have to demonstrate that too as part of this analysis. And it's, it takes a long time to kind of run that. So that's how we figure out in this airshed, and it gets a lot more complex as you continue to concentrate, industry in a certain area. So, but the yardstick we're always gonna use is, will they meet public health standards, national and air quality standards that are designed to protect public health? So that's how that works. On the water side, again, that's a very complex question. We have, so the Iowa DNR, if you're going to pump more than 25,000 gallons a day, you have to have a water use permit. So, and then through that process, depending on what that demand is gonna be, our engineers in Des Moines will evaluate that, whatever aquifer, they're gonna pull from, and everybody else that uses that aquifer to determine if that's acceptable, and if it's a beneficial use. If it is, the department permits it. So I think it's pretty common knowledge that, there's a lot of question marks on what is the real capacity, and the department is partnered with the Geological Survey Bureau and several other governmental agencies are kind of using those folks are kind of our resident experts in Iowa to do some of that modeling. So it's very important information. It's a great question. And a lot of us have those, on my side of the shop have the same concerns. Yeah. Yeah.
When were the standards first created and how often are they reviewed?
So that's another really good question. So you're gonna put me on the spot trying to remember the NACs actually came in. So they've been updated. That's the question. So when did the original NACs come out? The National Air Quality Standards, and how often they reviewed. So they are reviewed periodically. They just updated the fine particulate one from an annual standpoint, dropped it from 12 micrograms to 9. And I believe that process happens every 5 years. The original ones, so the Clean Air Act came out in 1970. It was not too long after that when they started passing national air quality standards, and it was really limited from a pollutant standpoint. There's 6 original, but the particulate matter has been parsed out as they figured out that the finer the particulate, the more impact it has on you. So start with, PM, they call it particulate matter, which is boulders kind of in the realm of air pollution. Then went to PM10, and now it's PM 2.5. So, and that's important because the stuff that's 2.5, you can't see it, and that's stuff that gets deepest in your lungs. So, and there's always a background concentration of that. In Lynn County, I haven't looked at the ambient data, so we have monitors that measure that all the time. It's probably in the mid-20s somewhere that this boys out there just a baseline from everything, all of our normal land use activities, traffic, heating, cooling, industrial contributions. That all factors in.
So to follow up on that, when you are looking at the air quality of something that's potentially going to be here.
Yeah.
How do you measure something that's potentially going to be here if it's not here? Do you just take data on something that's already similar?
Yeah.
Or how do you trust that what you're gonna tell people is gonna be accurate once it's already done and taken care of?
Sure. So we use these models I'm talking about. They're developed by EPA, and they need to update those things as they get more and more information. They improve the algorithms to improve accuracy. But so the models will be based on local geography and weather. So all the meteorological data from the airport, 5 years worth of it, will be loaded into this model. The terrain, and then the physical characteristics of the facility itself, including the stacks, the exhaust temps, the exhaust velocities or volumes, and fluid concentrations. Those concentrations come from a variety of sources. Some were testing at other similar sources. Some were based on EPA emission factors that they've developed over the years. And the more testing they have, the higher the rating. So for natural gas, it's a really high emission factor rating. So it's an A-rated emission factor because there's been so much testing. Natural gas is a really known fuel. It's one of the cleanest fossil fuels, if you're going down that route, that you can use. So figure out what is going to be the mass rate and the exit velocity, temperature in each of those stacks, and it's loaded in this model with all the other information. And then there's a Cartesian grid that's laid out across the landscape, out to, I don't remember, 3 or 5 miles. It's been a while, but a long ways. And then there's receptors that are set out everywhere. And so that model will predict the ground level concentration at each receptor. So that's the best tool we have to predict how a facility is going to impact an area. We also have to load in all the background information. So all the the actual emissions we're measuring gets loaded into model 2. And that concentration from this facility is added to that background. Then that gets compared to the max. And that's how we determine if that shows compliance and then they can move forward. Does that answer it?
Final, well, probably not final question.
Hey, you're really getting into the air stuff.
It's important.
Yeah, it absolutely is.
Uh,
I just hope I do it justice. It's been a bit.
my most consistent question all along throughout this process has been, what happens in your models, in your standards, when the standards themselves become lowered or non-existent?
So if the standards get lower, and then the facility, for some reason, is now exceeding those standards, and they're gonna have to come into compliance with those standards. So they'll be given a timeline to do that. But so anytime, so they lower the standards, our ambient monitors, they're showing a violation of max. So then go into this whole like evaluation of all sources in the air, figuring out who is contributing to that. And if they're exceeding predicted, they exceed those, then they're the ones who are gonna have to start making reductions. Just so we have like a facility like this one that they're looking to put in. The two main pollutants that require control in a natural gas plant typically are carbon monoxide and oxides of nitrogen. And these guys, since it's such a large facility and has to go through PSD, that requires best available control technology level for limits. So that's kind of best in class. So how low can they actually get it? And how have they demonstrated that somewhere else? So the limits that would be applied to these guys for like CO and NOx would be 2 parts per million, which is pretty low. Like your furnace in your house has to be less than 50 before you need service. Just to give you an idea from a concentration standpoint. Where the mass comes in, because you see these big numbers coming out of stacks, is so much air gets moved through there. So yeah, this concentration and this volume of air, mass, adds up pretty quickly. So to control those, they'll put in state-of-the-art control. So they'll have like a selective catalytic reduction for NOx. So they basically reduce oxides of nitrogen with a reducing agent. Sometimes it's ammonia, if you will. And at the end of that reaction, it all goes real well. You get elemental nitrogen, so nitrogen gas, and you get water. To verify that, you're gonna have to put in a continuous emission monitor. So they'll have a monitor in that stack, measures those emissions 24/7. And then they have to report those to us every quarter. And if they have an excess emission over X% of their limit, they have to report that to us within 8 hours. So there's kind of ongoing monitoring. They'll have the same thing for CO. CO, they're gonna be meeting that limit with the catalytic oxidizer. It's like your catalytic converter on your car and steroids, essentially is what that is. So they'll have to install those, and again, they'll have a continuous monitor for CO, same thing goes. So, I think that's about as good as it's gonna get as far as making sure they're in compliance. And we always have the option to require additional testing if we feel it's necessary. Plus, big sources like that, we come in, whether it's Lynn County or somebody from my team, and we do a wall-to-wall inspection every 2 years at major sources. So we'll look at all their permits, make sure they haven't made any modifications outside of their permitted, their allowable equipment they have there. They're not exceeding any operational limits. They're meeting their emission limits, all of that stuff. They're reporting everything they should, on and on and on. I mean, even on top of that, there's another permit that they have to get once they get their construction permit. It's called a Title V operating permit. Well, that does lots of other monitoring, but what's really key is they have to submit an annual compliance report where the responsible official from Alliant for this plant has to certify that they're either in compliance or not in compliance. If not in compliance, they have to say why, how long they've been in non-compliance, and what they're gonna do to fix it. So there's a lot of additional oversight that happens on these types of facilities. It's not like the George Foreman said it, forget it, we approve it, just ignore it. It then comes into our compliance monitoring strategy and gets inspected every 2 years. And even more frequent if there's problems. So, they cover it. Keep throwing them at me. I'm deep here. I'm deep.
No, I appreciate what you said. That helps out with a lot of things. My bigger question stands as the powers that be that have these regulations that said, you guys need to follow these rules, you guys follow these rules, you guys follow these rules. Yeah, today we're just gonna say, nope, I don't think so. Nobody has to follow any rules. are you still gonna hold these people to the same standard that you do currently have and say, yeah, I don't like your idea, I think we need to still do this?
That's a tough question. So those limits are set at federal level.
That's my,
So we're implementing the Clean Air Act on behalf of the EPA in Iowa, essentially, where we're doing. So I don't have an answer for that. So I don't know.
nobody does.
I don't know.
That's kind of hard to answer.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean, that's theoretically speaking.
It is
what the
I'm not sure.
government
We will
decides.
do, like, hey, this DNR will do whatever we're
Yeah.
legally allowed to do. So we are committed to clean air in Iowa, clean water, the whole works, so.
What happens when they're out of compliance? They get penalized money and we get bad air, could be?
You know,
On the time.
it depends, so. Obviously, they're doing a whole bunch of monitoring, and every now and again, you're gonna have a blip here or there. Those typically depends, a lot of times if we find issues with them air emissions or whatever, we'll issue them a notice violation, ask for a corrective action plan. And they'll kind of stop there, if they fix it, they're good. If it's something that's, a lot more chronic, or it's acute and it had a real environmental impact, then we take that, we're a lot more aggressive in our action, and we make sure that compliance timeline is much more compressed. So we had an inspector out to the Marshalltown facility in, I think it was March of this year, and they'd identifying violations. So Alliance, typically a pretty good actor. I mean, has been my experience with them. So very responsive. So I can't say that for everywhere, but at least my experience with them has been pretty positive, so.
A question, it says that this facility is gonna be designed to operate at a base loaded mode. So install it or build it, and it's calculated to run at this level.
Yeah.
For what we are now. And then for all this proposed, growth, expansion of residential and commercial, industrial, the demand's gonna be more, so to the air pollution quality and all that, how does that stay in spec?
Yeah, well, it kind of depends on how they.
Because if you crank this up,
Yeah,
it's gonna have more output.
And open it up into heavy industrial. Now we have new
Yeah.
coming into,
so this source will be evaluated based on its maximum capacity to operate. So whatever they tell us their maximum is at that time, that's what we're gonna look at. And if they wanna change that, they have to come back for another review. Now, just because demand's increased in this area, doesn't mean that the power is gonna be sourced from here. It could be sourced from a wind, or it could be sourced from nuclear, it could be sourced from another coal plant. So they're buying this power from, the grid, wherever. So it depends if it's cheaper for them to make it here, they'll make it here. If it's cheaper for them to pull it from their wind farm, they're gonna pull it from there, or vice versa. I don't fully understand how they interconnected. We have any power people here that'd be helpful with it.
Well, I understand it's kind of grid and
Yeah,
shared.
it doesn't mean it has to be approved here.
So to speak, but as a percentage of that, you're gonna have to raise, the level.
Yeah, and the expectation for them to meet compliance with NACS, same.
That's kind of like what you said before, when a new, like if we have more, if that gets rezoned to heavy industrial, then whoever else comes in.
Yeah.
They have to take all of those measurements and everything into account with what's already been in the area, right? Like what you were
Yeah.
saying.
Are you talking about also if there's other growth for other industrial facilities coming in the
Oh,
area?
yeah, I mean, the whole
Yeah.
area,
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
whole area is stated for growth.
I think your point's very valid.
So
It'll have to
that's
be-
what I mean, is it says here, base loaded mode, that's to me like an idle mode. And, 10, 15, 20 years down the road, this thing can be cranked up because we're gonna be expanding and we don't have any knowledge or limitations or
I don't know if baseload means that. and it's not-
expectations, I guess, for what it
Sure.
should be.
Sure.
I know somebody's gonna come in and whatever.
Yeah,
Anyway,
no,
go ahead.
I don't think that's what baseload means in this context. Baseload to me means that they're gonna have an operating level that they plan to run this thing, because these are some of the most efficient they have in their fleet. So, I don't know if somebody made a comment earlier, it'd be a state of the art combined cycle and combustion turbine. with a HRSG on top of it. So basically you're kind of maximizing the amount of energy you're getting out of the fuel by coupling the turbine itself and then this heat recovery steam boiler. So it's kind of best in class for those. I don't know exactly what they're gonna build yet, because they haven't really told us. I mean, the process started and it stopped. So it's hard for me to answer that, I guess, but typically these are leaned on pretty heavily because they operate really efficient. So it's more efficient than like a coal plant, type of thing, so.
Are there other locations that were proposed for this?
I don't know, I don't know exactly where they're gonna potentially go. If they don't go to Fairfax, I think that's what Jeff spoke to
Yeah.
before.
Alliance not gonna reveal, they are looking at other locations and having conversations with people about other locations, but Alliance will not say where the location.
We're guesstimating, up by 80th and 30. And then, do you know where the produce stand is out there on 30?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right near there also, because it's on a major gas line, so that would be a good guess.
Yeah, so to kind of touch on what I talked about earlier with the Lynn County Supervisor meeting that they had, the one, Kirsten is her name, I can't think of her last name right now. But she had said basically one of the proposed locations was her backyard. Well, she lives over in that development off Beverly, which would make her backyard basically where Schrader's crushing location, which is per se. So, again, if she's saying it's in her backyard, I would think it has to be somewhere 80th and 3rd.
Is there a drawing proposed, for the path of these, you gotta supply this with water and cooling and wastewater and
Yeah,
natural gas, where are those gonna be run?
I don't, my understanding is they're gonna source the water from the city of Fairfax. And wastewater will be treated by the city of Fairfax is my initial understanding. These
That's
guys,
if it goes at Fairfax, right?
yeah,
If it goes.
if it goes in Fairfax, is that what your question for Fairfax or?
Well, yeah, if they put it in Fairfax
Yeah.
here, what's the route gonna be to get the thing plumbed and?
Yeah, maybe Chris can help with, I don't know.
Yeah, we've already got sewer and water out on the industrial sites.
Yeah,
There's
Several
several,
industrial stuff are already.
they're already in there.
Like,
That's shovel ready out there for them.
okay, wastewater as well?
yeah, and the type of, they don't have a traditional cooling tower. We saw that one picture where that big circle and red all scratched out. The cooling tower they're proposing over here is an air cooled condenser, so basically out of the back end of that heat recovery steam boiler, it gets routed through this condenser thing, so it's a series of tubes with fins on it. Then air is drawn on the outside of it, so it sucks the heat out of it, condenses that steam down to water again, and that's reused. So then there's a certain amount of that water they always have to blow down, because it'll get, the water quality isn't quite what they want, for the boiler operation, so they'll blow that down, that goes to the city, to be treated.
What's the height of the
I don't know.
stack?
They don't know, that's part of the permitting
Yeah.
process. So from what I understand, it's somewhere between 190 and 250 feet, yeah.
Till they know the site, they can't say how tall is that.
Yeah.
Right.
So a few things that I took away from our last meeting that I wanted to, because I've really been on the fence about all of this as a citizen, and business owner in town. And I took into account a lot of things that Shane and, Tony, who was from Lynn County Health, said last week. And some big things that stood out to me that really have kind of almost changed the way I've been looking at it now is, one, the Fairfax, splash pad uses 100,000 gallons of fresh water on a hot summer day. This plant would use between 60 and 75,000 gallons, of recycled water. So they're recycling their water, which I feel like maybe that's something we should look into doing with our, splash pad. And then, I also thought about the whole air pollutant thing that everyone's really concerned about, rightfully so. I mean, I live here in town, 2 blocks away, my business is 2 blocks from here, and all across the parking lot. So I'm concerned about that too. And from your conversation last week, I appreciated the amount of particulate that has to land within the property of the plant, right? Is that how it went? Like, there's a certain, like, the majority of the particulate that comes out of those stacks has to land within a certain perimeter.
Well, it has to meet NAC standards
Okay.
outside of the perimeter, so the receptors I talked about, like when we're doing that ambient analysis. There's thin line receptors, and that's typically where you're gonna see the high temperature concentration. And then out from there, they start to spread out as you move further away from the facility, so that's kind of how that analysis
Okay.
works, so. I mean, where it falls out is kind of difficult.
Right,
question.
but they're monitoring that, so
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
and
that
the
is,
fact that this is like state of the art and very energy efficient, very clean, according to like the standards, right? Like
yeah,
they,
for fossil
they are,
fuels.
right, so they have to be held to like very high standards. They're constantly monitoring. And, I feel like it's a huge revenue for our town, like 35-ish, $32,000 a month in water revenue, like that's huge. And, 350,000 a year for tax revenue is huge. How many building permits have we had in this year so far? 5. So our town is not growing. So nobody's coming to Fairfax. How are we going to fund things in this town? And that's scary to me that we don't have more than 5 building permits in the town of Fairfax. Like, that's really scary. I've been a part of the Fairfax community for almost 20 years between my parents living here and we purchased their home and now we live here in town. And I don't know, I am very concerned about the pollution, but like, I feel like all of the things you and Tony were telling us were like, this is gonna be monitored so heavily, and there's so many regulations that they have to meet. That Alliant is, willing to work with the community, they're already supporting our community now. And, I don't know, I just kind of like, if we don't welcome them into our community with all of these things that they're doing, who else is gonna come out here? I mean, that land has already been sold to Alliant years ago. And it's already zoned as industrial, right? So they're talking about the rezoning, wording of rezoning it to heavy industrial. What does the rest of that look like for our town? What other businesses will come to town out there? I don't know, I worry when I found out that we haven't had hardly any building permits in this community this year. I mean, it's October. And it worries me that like, we're not growing. So, and Alliant is a huge part of the community in Cedar Rapids, and we're very close to Cedar Rapids. I don't know, I get that it could be an eyesore, I get that, that you don't, like, I understand the concerns, because I have them too. Last week, people were talking about the wind blowing all of that pollution on our town. Well, most of the time the wind blows from the northwest, most of the time, and that was been shown from even reports from the airport, right? If Alliant chooses a different site, like 80th Street and 30, or out by the produce stand, now where is all of that stuff going to blow? Directly over our town. So we have a higher chance of all of that stuff blowing on our town than we did if it's on the east edge of town. So, not that I don't value anyone's house that's out there, cause I do, but the majority of our town is going to catch it if it's north of our town. So, I'm just throwing that out there. These are all things I took away from our meeting last week. And I would welcome to hear your guys' thoughts and stuff, especially if you were here last week. I know we reached out to get some feedback, from people who were here, and that's like the whole point of this, right? We want to be able to tell city council, like, what are we all feeling, and like, be real about it. So that's just what I'm doing with you all, is just being real. As a resident, and a business owner, like, we have to think about all the things, not just like what might affect us, in our little spot, but
I'm gonna add to that.
yeah.
I'm gonna do a rebuttal. I have over 300 signatures from citizens. I've been pounding the pavement. I've met wonderful people. We have very educated and smart citizens. They don't want it. I think our council wants it, and maybe our city administrator. The people of Fairfax do not want it, and they are passionate about that. They like the small town feel. We don't want to grow any bigger. Okay, we are concerned about our health. We're concerned about the fire safety. We don't have the capacity to take care of something like this. We don't want to live by these huge towers. That's why people move to Fairfax, not to live by heavy industrial. We live here for our own mountain feel. And you guys have no idea how passionate people are. I mean, I'm really proud of our town. People have invited me into their house, old ladies that have been here for 80 years. People feel really strongly. I walked in, they've invited me in their homes. This is intolerable to me because I feel like no one's listening to us. I don't think people are taking us seriously. I think it's maybe selfish reasons and we're losing sight of what our town stands for. We don't want to annex people's land. We want the farms out there. We like living on the edge of the town. Most people moved here because of that. There's a couple on Lynn Street, their house is for sale. They're moving. She's a teacher in my district. They're moving because they're like, we've had enough of this. Fairfax is not the same Fairfax. I talked to an older gentleman. He's lived here his whole life. He said, and I know he lives on one of the main streets here in town on Church Street. And he's like, this isn't the town I grew up in. And I know things change. I've been here for 30 years. It has changed since I've lived here, but it's still that small town feel. I think maybe part of our council is not listening to our residents and they have a whole different vision. That's not what we want.
Well, and that's why we wanted to have these meetings, was for
Right.
people to come and voice their opinion either way, honestly, like that's, cause I'll tell you, when Jeff and I first started talking about this, like, I was like, to the no, I don't want this in our town, like, at all. And the more I'm doing my own research and the more I'm learning, it worries me that people wouldn't want our town to grow. Like, that worries me that you don't want our town to grow.
There's a difference between a power plant and heavy industry.
Totally agree.
To a neighborhood.
No,
I mean, that's common sense. Absolutely.
Can I just say one thing? People are forgetting planning and zoning committee did their job. Okay, that the heavy industrial is limited to a very, very small space. Okay, and as far as I know from talking to people on planning and zoning, they have no intention of creating a whole large heavy industrial complex out there. But the reality is, Big Cedar is going to be an industrial park, no matter what we say.
Right.
So if we can control it and keep it just to light industrial as it is now, with the heavy industrial very pinpointed and strategically planned out by our planning and zoning committee, because they've done their job. They have this thing that they sat and went through all the information like you're talking about now, and they've already done their work. And the heavy industrial is extremely pinpointed only to that acreage where that plant would sit. Nothing else has been changed. And the changes in the ordinance that we're gonna hear this second round come to the next council meeting doesn't change any of that. It's just that
Just for
one
that.
area that the planning and zoning committee has singled out.
Right, just for that plot of
Just
land
for
that
that
Ryan
one
already
lot,
owns.
yes.
Okay,
So there's no heavy industrial coming. And then if they do, they gotta go back through planning and zoning to see if the planning and zoning committee, who by the way are all citizens of the community, is willing to allow that to happen. But they've done their work, they know what they're doing, and they have the planning and so the heavy industrial is only for one very small pinpointed area.
At this time.
And is that what's
At this time, that's correct.
That is a.
And in order to get it changed, Cindy, they have to go back to the planning and zoning committee.
I understand that. I was on
Okay.
the planning committee. I understand what the process is. We are at a process where heavy industrial M2 district exists 0 places in Fairfax currently. We've had the ordinance for a long time.
So what?
We have, I'm not talking, please don't interrupt.
Let's try to keep,
Yeah.
so the whole idea behind this is keep it
Just to
simple.
have the conversation.
This is gonna stay simple.
Um. It was proposed because Alliant requested. Had they not asked, planning and zoning probably would not have on their own done anything about it. Sure. It was an ask. It was directed to the planning and zoning to say, hey, we have this thing. How do you feel about that? Special exception. It's not in the language completely. It is a special exception. That they did do. But the problem becomes, you open the door. And yes, if somebody else wants to come, they'll have to follow the same process. They'll have to go through that. They'll have to decide whether it's a special exception, whether it's added to heavy industrial or not. Time consuming, yes, I get that. But the door would be open. The other issue that I'm seeing that people seem to be discounting is, I've seen lots of documents with the future land use map. If you haven't seen it, look at it. The future land use map shows across the road from where this proposed site is, some commercial with residential behind. This would be the area behind Southview, that giant cornfield across the street in that area. If you want to grow your town, you want more households, you want more businesses that are industrial, you don't put a power plant across the street from where you want that other stuff. If I want to move to this town, I'm certainly not going to look at a house that's across the street from a power plant. I visited the Marshalltown plan. It is state of the art. I don't doubt that. It was clean. I don't believe that it's going to be a employer generated business for Fairfax residents. One of the documents or one of the numbers I saw was 55 residents or 55 employees. Do we know for a fact those 55 employees in this Trevero era Alliant thing are from Fairfax? I don't know that. Probably will never know that. The power plant itself will not generate jobs for our citizens unless it's being built. That's it. It doesn't take a lot of people to run a place like that.
25. That's it. 25 people, all it takes. Yep.
6 in a 24-hour period.
Yep.
And a lot of it is off-site. Get that. My bigger concern is the heavy industrial ordinance has been on the books for a long time. If we need that to grow, then why haven't we done it before? We haven't done it before because it's not appropriate for our small town community.
Has it been?
I want to still grow,
Oh, yeah.
but I do not think that a heavy industrial, because my fear, and you want to talk hypotheticals, I can be full of them because I've seen things happen that shouldn't have happened. Is that currently our future land use map says this, commercial, residential. We now deem this other across the street heavy industrial. What's to stop the next person that comes in and says, hey, I want you to consider this heavy industrial as well. I don't want to see us get boxed in because we're afraid to grow. The revenue numbers, have any of them helped your taxes go down? Yes, I know our taxes haven't risen in whatever, Lynn County raises them all the time. But Fairfax keeps their tax rate at this 8.10. Residents, we have talked to, we have been pounding doors, we have been signing petitions, we have been standing at the parks, talking to people. A lot of the people I talked to moved here because it has that small town feel. They like that. That doesn't mean that we don't want to grow. And Alliant, they're gonna do what they're gonna do. They're gonna put this power plant somewhere because the data centers demand it. But for $350,000 potentially, maybe some water revenue, I don't agree with that. It's not gonna be beneficial to the residents who don't want it, who are concerned. Regulations aside, we have regulations all over the place. And if something breaks down, our volunteer fire department, they're gonna be in trouble. The residents are passionate about this.
Well, a lot of them are, for sure, but I think we can't speak for the whole town when we're talking about any side, right? You've got both sides, you know, I mean, from the last meeting, I sent out an email just trying to get feedback, are you a yes, are you a no?
That's the other thing that I have noticed on the knocking on doors that I have been doing. I have not talked to a single person who is for it. And I know there are people out there. I would love to understand why. That's the piece I'm missing, because to me, the revenue doesn't outweigh.
So the Google data center out there is gonna have 36 towers off of their plant, 36. Yeah, they're
It's
gonna,
not in Fairfax.
right, but you can see it, but you can see it.
That's done, but it's
So,
not.
right, but you can see it, cause it's literally butts up the same, land, it's like literally right next door. So it's gonna have 36 stacks.
You actually can't see it
Up.
from the hill from Fairfax.
I can see it from Lefevere Road, you can see all the lights in the
You
building.
can't see the data centers,
Yeah, you can see it when you're standing on Lefevere Road right by Trevero.
not from Fairfax.
I think that not being in Fairfax, you know, I think right now the focus is what's going on. in
So
Fairfax,
I'm
right?
just saying like that area out there that's going to be, planned to be residential, like they're gonna see that right there. You'll be seeing all of that steam or whatever's coming off of those 36 stacks out there.
So, yeah.
Yeah, you.
Yeah, sorry.
Where's this now?
I'm gonna hang out.
And for you, I think,
Yeah.
what is the prevailing wind for this period? On the runway, primary runway is east-west 927. Secondary runway is 1331 north
Yeah.
southeast. The polar runway, again, 927 east-west.
Yeah.
Normally, trying to build a runway, they try to build it on the most prevailing wind. That's the idea behind the runway head.
Sure.
So I don't know, and I don't know what exact.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what time frame you look at. That, I think what they in the airport said, he went back to 1972.
You could, yes.
I know Chris asked me, I find counts, maybe the last 5 years. So it kind of depends, you know, sometimes it's northwest and out of the south. You know, those are the, you know, but it'll be different spring and it'll be different fall, winter looks a little different. But overall, I mean, this is a game of windrows that I pulled, from data from, the airport, same data the airport will use.
So southeast wind, you will get it for the plant.
You get some, yeah, southerly and northwest are the,
Yeah.
yeah, those are the two
So
big.
pretty much whichever you say, whichever way the engineer is that day, is what's gonna get.
Yeah.
We will, they will, we won't.
And that's what the models that we run bring in actual meteorological data from the area and that you have to meet everywhere all the time, type of thing, so. This how it's set up, I used to do dispersion modeling, but I've forgotten more than I retained. Go back. Because hopefully you don't ask me tough questions on dispersion modeling.
Another question would be, talk about water usage. Flight pad down here, I think I see it you quite a bit. No, it's not for you.
Oh,
I just.
yeah.
So Brian says 100,000 gallons a day on a typical summer day. How many days is that flight pad open?
No, I know, I was just saying, like, that just struck me from the last meeting.
Right. So 150 days, 160 days.
Mhm.
They're gonna be using potentially 65,000 gallons a day.
Yeah.
365 days.
Right, they're also
So,
recycling their water too, which we do not, so,
So,
yeah.
so,
I know, it's just like, I just was talking about things that I took away from the last meeting, cause a lot of things I did not know. And I was researching things in the last couple of weeks, knowing we were planning these meetings. So it's just some things that struck me, from the last time listening to the gentleman speak, so.
one of the things too that about water supply, water line currently runs along South View, I believe. On the north side of South View. feeding Trevero. And where the sewer system tie into Trevero? Is it currently in the Fairfax sewer system or?
Yeah, look, your road's got a sewer main.
Okay, but people on Southview, who have a water line running through, they do not have sewer. So you're not gonna benefit those, just the Fairfax, because of the plant. Is that right?
Well,
About that throwing city council minutes.
when we put the sewer main in, let it clear, to go to south, to go to the Trevero site, we put the manhole to go up Southview eventually. So, Trevero wasn't required to run that up Southview, it didn't impact Southview at all, that, their site. So, the main's there, just a matter of the city being able to fund putting that sewer main up Southview Road.
Well, and also they would want to do some street improvements
Right.
before they put the,
Which requires tax on
yeah,
it,
so it's a whole multi-phase plan.
not revenue at all.
But with that revenue, the 32,000 that keep getting put out there now, is, you've done the research, is the expense side, what's that estimate?
I don't know what research is for the sewer main, come on.
No, but just for the line plan, the proposed plan, there's gonna be a certain amount of expense to Fairfax to build out and do.
It sounded to me like Alliant was willing to, take on some of that,
So Alliant, yeah, it said that Alliant was gonna pay for the lift station. That would be required to pump that water back out into the city system for recycling.
And really, to answer those questions fairly, what we're doing right now is asking to change the zoning to allow to have those conversations with the line. So they can make their proposal and the city can ask those questions. Without a site in Fairfax, we can't ask the line those questions. What will you pay for? When we start on a development agreement, that's the first thing. The first step we would take, if council would pass this, is to be able to start those conversations with Lion Energy. As far as what they're willing to contribute to the city.
So the 32,000 is the carrot, but we don't really know that number.
The 32,000 is what we figure the revenue would be, the bill to
The
the.
revenue without the expense.
Well, our rates cover the expenses for the water and sewer, so that, you know, that would be the same rate that we're charging everybody for the water, so the per gallon revenue covers whatever expenses it is. The systems are profitable.
It's not just water and sewer, though. It's streets, it's fire safety, it's all.
And again, it has to get-
things the city does.
We have to get to the development agreement to address those items.
But so before
Until we
you
get
put out
there.
the carrot saying that, hey, this is why you should do it, you need to also have the expense side figured out.
It's a little.
But yeah, we can't have that talk until they get to vote on it and
Right.
decide if they're gonna talk about that or not, so that's a hard thing to say.
The revenue should just be taken out of there. It shouldn't be a part of anything we're making that.
Well, that would just plus they would be charged for their water, so that is, like, if that's what they were using from 60 to 75,000 gallons a day, that's what they would be charged for their water, correct? Yeah, so that is okay to talk about, cause we would know that.
And, you know, if the plant goes somewhere in the Fairfax vicinity, it may very well be outside our city limits. It's still in our fire district,
Right.
you know,
Still-
still in our visible, still in our breathing, you know, but we would have, Fairfax as a city wouldn't have any vote in the control or any revenue from it. Potential, I mean, nobody knows because we don't know exactly where it is, but our fire district goes out wider than our city limits.
Substantially wider.
I have two statements, just one, if I listened to the Alliant guy last time, and he said they use 285 gallons of water per minute to keep the plant running 24/7, so that's 60 to 75,000 gallons is not true. And also, if Alliant, and I've been following the Gazette, they are deprioritizing us. I have talked to Emily Kaiser, I've talked to Anna Airport, I've talked to a lot of people. They don't even want it here. Why is our council pushing this? Why would we want to say, hey, come back to us, if they've already said, no, we prioritize this area and we would like to go elsewhere? They don't want it there. We most of us, a large percentage of the community does not want it here.
That's
Why
fair.
would we want that? Also, the safety of the sports complex and for our kids. Like, we have other money we could be spending. I know we're in Germany, left $800,000 for a library. Oh yeah, I would love to give our kids in this community a library and not a power town. Cause they would get a lot more than a power town.
We have a library.
That's it.
And a large library, an updated library, disciplinarian, and you know what I'm saying. Yes, we do have a library. But Fort Burns, Germany left all that money. We have the resources. We're not even giving money. We have like $1 million that we could start a library, but we're more concerned about a power plant. It's going to poison
So
us,
let's
poison our
Let's
water.
get in this for a minute, because again, this isn't supposed to be cited at all. We're not standing on soapboxes, pitching anything. I have not said a word. I've sat here all night long and kept my mouth shut. All I did was read slides.
And I was just sharing things I took away from the
Yeah,
last meeting.
so all we're trying to do is just share information and try to figure out, not be cited at all. I'm not trying to be cited whatsoever on anything at all. I understand. So, but again, not the intent for what we want to put these together. We talk about the council, right? So the reason why we asked council members to be here was for them to gather information. The council members that I've spoken to are not trying to ram this down our throat.
Yeah.
They're trying to make an educated decision. One of the questions they asked me was, can you send out an email after these meetings and get feedback from the people that come, if they're a yes or if they're a no? Right? So they want this information. They want to know what the citizens think. So that's one of the reasons why we decided to put it down, right? So at the end of this meeting tonight, if you stop to talk to my wife back there, give her your email address. You already did. Yes, thank you for your reply. I will send you an email in a couple of days, just, hey, you a yes, or you a no? And then I'll come to the council meeting on the 14th and present how many yeses I got, this is how many no's I got, but they make an informed decision. So,
Right, but it is being deprioritized. So I guess I'm saying, why are we still even talking about this?
well, it came. So,
Well, no, I'm saying, like, it's still gonna be on the agenda for the next council meeting.
well, I think.
They've already deprioritized.
Well, deprioritized doesn't mean dead, I suppose, and they've already had one vote, so I think to kill it, they have to have another vote to. I don't know, I'm not on the council, I don't know how that works, but I would imagine they probably have to know it twice for it to die or something, I don't know. So,
And I would encourage anybody, if you have more petitions, more signatures, more sheets filled out, get them to City Hall, hopefully tomorrow or by Friday at noon at the latest, so we can put them in the packet, so the council can have time to review them. When you walk into a meeting with it, it's hard for them to review it right there that second, okay? So feel free to drop those off, we'll copy them, you can keep your originals, we can scan them and get them in the packet.
So one thing that I think the whole city and everybody's forgetting about is, this is all farmland that's getting turned into either housing, industrial, or whatever. Has anybody talked to any of these farmers that are selling all their land? Look,
Cause this land was already sold to Alliant like years ago.
Over 10 years.
Yeah.
I mean,
And it's,
so
as they're,
I understand the farms are not getting passed down to like the next generation, because like kids don't want to run the farms and all that, so they're gonna sell their land. But a lot of these farmers are making like $30,000 an acre. That a lion or whoever is like throwing money at these farmers. And I mean, I don't know if anyone's ever talking to the farmers. I haven't talked. I don't know any of the farmers in this area. I haven't lived in this area very long. But that might be a good question to ask is, anyone talking to the farmers? I mean, even if they build up north of here, that's all farmland. That some farmer's gonna sell this farmland. All that data center and all that used to be all farmland. There used to be a horse ranch out there. From what I understand.
yeah, it's beautiful.
I mean, it's, you know, so, I mean, we're.
nobody's forced to sell that land.
Yeah, no, I get that, but like, I mean, like, we're all thinking like, oh, like, we're greedy here. I'm not saying the farmers are greedy, because obviously, if no one wants to farm their land, they're gonna sell their land. But, you know, some of these people still live on the farms and all that, they're still selling on the farm. And I understand they don't have to sell it, but has anybody reached out to any of the farmers that are selling all this land? And not just the data, or not just the line thing, but all the way around. Because sooner or later, you know, I mean, Fairfax is gonna be condensed and it's gonna be surrounded by something, whether it's housing or all industrial or whatever. I mean, there's businesses that are, they're building, sheds and buildings up, stuff like that all the time. They don't have to be huge industrial. It'd be like Novak's building like that, or you go down 151 through Walper and all that, you have all this Schrader and all that. That's the stuff that's gonna get built. It's not gonna always be huge industrial. So just something to think about, you know. You had it.
Yeah, I just have a couple comments, in another packet, I don't think it was last meeting, maybe it was the city council meeting, it was after the airport study. So from what I understand, the airport was addressing things, that study addressed things as they are. The only thing I've heard about in these meetings is the proposed runway, which has been in their planning for 50 years. They haven't built it. Not saying that they would never build it, but there's letters from pilots. These are the people that are up there and they know what they're doing and they're saying they don't. The airport says they don't want it. And we can argue until we're ready to face, but the airport's been there a whole lot longer than a lot of Fairfax. And when you move into town, you have to look around and say, what's here, what's already established. So that's one point. And the information's on the city council website, as well as the letters from the pilots. So if you haven't read them, I would suggest. Another issue when we're talking about not having Fairfax grow, and we don't seem as a town, we don't seem to be able to keep a restaurant.
Yeah.
And how many people are coming in to go to Mikey's? How many people are?
How many people are coming to get a cup of coffee?
Exactly.
Because I can tell you, last week I had a day where I had $36 in
Yeah.
sales. And I can't pay rent on $36 a day in coffee sales.
So
So,
if we want to attract business here, we have to support them.
yeah,
I don't think they're
agree.
doing great in that.
Yeah, I agree. Totally.
Yeah.
I think you're good, I see other hands up.
Okay, you had mentioned the emails when we walked into it, gather people's emails and ask and yes, no question. My comment to that is at the last council meeting, it was presented to the council that there were signatures. There were people who were against it. That didn't seem to have a lot of weight. My point to the gathering information and asking people who come to the meetings is the council only going to accept the yes, no votes from the people who came to a meeting?
Oh, no, I don't think so.
Not in the council members, I thought.
Because I'm pretty sure they're all aware that there are a boatload of signatures out there of people who don't want this, and having the actual signatures, looking at them, reviewing them. I don't think that should hold a lot of weight as far as yes, no, maybe,
I mean, this is just a way to show them that we held these couple meetings and.
and it's a hard fact, I get that.
Yeah,
Piece of
people
paper that says,
felt
this, sign this, here you go, look at it.
Well, I would think the people that have been at the parks and signed it expect that
to be
go-
shared.
To
Yeah.
be shared.
It will be shared, but the point is that I don't want, from the last council meeting to, I didn't attend this last informational meeting. It didn't seem that mattered, but I have a feeling that your email to people matters more. And it's a personal thing, I'm not taking it anyway, that's just throwing that out there at the top of my head. My other comment is that there are lots and lots of different opinions about all of this stuff out there, and we know that. How do we work together as a community to support restaurants, to support the coffee shop, to figure out how to connect our 3 or 4 different areas of our town and still be safe, care, and
That's a good question.
That's a very good question.
I mean, we tried to support the Marcos, we couldn't, like, she goes to our bar all the time.
Yeah.
Don't tell my wife, but I've been trying coffee 3 times a week. So, you might have heard that.
But he gets a loyalty card stamp every time.
Pretty much, but yeah, I'm fabulous question. It does, as a citizen, other concerns that I have is like, people running for council are talking about, we want to add on to the library, we want to do these things, that thing. As of someone that runs a business, like I manage Novak Electric, we're right across the street. Novak Electric is the last commercial building that was built in this town 2 years ago. That's the last commercial permit, new construction permit we've had in the city of Fairfax. I have 5 residential permits up in Harlem Heights.
Or last year,
4 last year. So
5 this year.
as power plant aside, we talk about the things that we want to do in Fairfax. Concerning as someone that runs a business, the town kind of like business. Where does the money come from? And I don't know, I don't have answers. I'm not trying to push one side or the other at all. I don't know that it's push either, but it's just, what can we do as a city to attract the right businesses to the city and then support them? I think it's a great question. So, again, I don't know.
The statement, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, fun. Okay, so my husband, born and raised in Fairfax, 63 years, lived here 45 years. I have 16 grandchildren that go down to that ball line. And so that's why I have. They play, my grandkids are anywhere from 3 years old to 25. So there's a lot of softball. But my younger ones, beg to the splash man. They don't care what the temperature is. I am responsible when they are with me to know that they're breathing safe. To know that that's my responsibility, is to make sure they're in a safe environment. And this town has put so much money and made that a beautiful park down there. Fun, safe, they sponsor so much stuff. It's wonderful. So to have to think, am I gonna switch instead and go to their community and go to their stuff? Because I've got 7 grandkids over there, but I go because I bring here. I mean, am I gonna switch and take it to the Cedar Rapids Park? Am I? It's a lot to think. I'm thinking, okay, number one, we need to think about the entire town and how this is going to affect everybody's health. It will affect different people differently. And almost anything. It's the elderly people who will affect the most. And the tiny ones, the little babies that are out the strugglers. And yeah, we need to see the town grow. And the money would be fantastic. It sounds wonderful. But not if it's gonna hit not if my 77-year-old neighbors could possibly die sooner. I help her every day, I take her up and down her ramp, I take her for all of her doctor's appointments and stuff. We've been friends for 45 years. And I'd like to have her around with other drunkards. And she likes to get up in the morning and walk down to her first level of her ramp and sit on a bench and drink coffee. And I go there and sit outside for half an hour or longer, almost every morning. And she's very concerned about all this stuff. So I'm taking more information to her tomorrow morning when I go for coffee.
Well, that's why, like I said, I've known Shane for a long number of years.
Yeah.
He volunteered nicely to come and talk about the air standards that are on there and stuff like that, you know, so yeah,
And
I completely understand,
appreciate all that.
yeah. It is understandable, that you can think about that, yeah, but you're right, I think that, you know, older folks.
I guess I'm focused on all the things that can go wrong. And everybody else, or a lot of people are focused on everything that can go right. But as a mom and a grandma, I always focus on what can go wrong. Am I prepared? Do I have enough of this? When, yeah.
Yeah.
My grandkids are from that.
Makes sense.
How much of the airport's decision factors into? Yeah,
Well, I think, for me personally, when I think about, I want to be more concerned about Fairfax than really the Cedar Rapids Airport, I guess, basically, because it's the town, you know, if you start studying up on the effects of, you know, some of the things that, how clean the air is coming from an airport, how clean the air is coming from the events, the raw fuel dumps that they do as they land, things of that nature, that's not clean. Airports are not clean either, you know, so, but for me personally, what I'm most concerned about is what's gonna happen in my town. What's gonna happen in Fairfax, like, I don't,
right, I understand.
I don't necessarily know that, you know, I would hope that,
Their ideal spots.
yeah, oh, for
That
sure.
was said, so I'm just curious.
Yeah, and that might be one of the things that Alliance look at too, is like, you know, we
I
want.
mean, I know, you know, they need their.
But that's been in their plan for 50 years, right? And like, do we know if it's gonna happen in the next 50 years?
Different things.
I don't know. Are they gonna,
Is it ever gonna
I
happen?
have no idea.
Yeah.
I don't know that anyone would know that.
Hard to say.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that. 1976, 77. Airport plan for the future had parallel runway, would be stayed with the existing runway. Plan on the north side, right for the border. That was 1976, 77 in report. But yet, 49 years, okay, let's go at both our coast theory.
Yeah,
That plan has been,
yeah.
now it's a single route. It is longer.
I know, like, when are they gonna do it? Who knows,
I don't know
right?
that the bird is getting all right.
Yeah. And the other thing is too, like, that, like Jeff just mentioned, like, those jets now dump jet fuel when they're going to land.
Huh?
So,
I've been Christ Fire Rescue Crew out there for 32 years. I don't recall them ever dumping fuel, landing. Yeah, 32 years. So if you show me where that happened.
I'm just saying in general, like, to land lighter.
I mean, do you know of anything that way in the state where they dump raw fuel as they land?
I've heard doing it in emergency situations, yeah,
We've never had that situation in my 32 years.
I'm not a FAA or expert.
I'm just saying it does happen, so, yeah.
In gathering research.
yeah.
And we can say we don't wanna think about the airport. But when we do something that affects the airport, then it becomes part of the conversation.
And that affects millions of people that use that airport every year. The University of Iowa athletes, everybody that comes, flies out of Eastern Iowa, like it's so selfish to think, oh, we don't care about them. I mean, we just went $350,000 revenue. Emily Kaiser reports what Jeff was very small formula. They're just made up numbers. Because there is no formula, there is nothing. It tells us how much we'll actually get. And it could be less than that. For the damage to the roads, the damage to our health, to the damage to the citizens, that's not legal money. It's not about money, it's about community. It's about people.
Right, but at the same token, I don't know if Cedar Rapids Airport cares much about Fairfax.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they
So it kind of goes, to me, in my opinion, it kind of goes both ways.
Money.
I personally asked the airport.
Well, I understand that, and obviously right now, they're handling, like, they just fly the University of Iowa Athens right now with the.
Right, but I'm saying
So,
the document said, that the pilot said, you will get more turbulence. It's proven fact. They don't want the thermal uplift that close to the airport. Because they're looking out for everybody that flies. It's a safe, it's a cargo.
But did they take that consideration on the, like,
Yeah,
we didn't.
I know.
like the
I'll
airport,
be farther away.
but
The data.
the path that they show flies literally right over top of the data center. This is a line of data centers, but they make no mention of the data center in their report. They've only specifically focused on, and I talked about this last week. I felt like the report only focuses on what could be happening with Fairfax.
Maybe they don't wanna add to it. I'm gonna be
I-
the same thing for the, I just had a clarification question because I truly don't know.
Yeah.
The stacks at the data centers, how tall are they?
60 feet.
And how tall are the one they're proposing?
They don't know the exact stack height, but somewhere between 190 and.
Yeah, that may be why they're not doing that.
It could be, but I mean, the data center stack, the data centers are pumping different emissions into the air. It's a different type of volume. But again, to me, I just thought it was odd that they were gonna do a study on runway paths and not include anything going on a mile down the road. I just thought it was odd. It's something I know that.
Might just be because of stacks everywhere.
It could be, yeah. You're right.
I know for a fact that I personally asked the airport commission to have Fairfax representatives on their board. And it's never happened. That was in what year, Chris, 17, 18, I don't remember what year.
somewhere in there.
But I personally asked them. So they're aiming stuff right at us, and they haven't talked to us yet.
Are you talking about the airport commission or the airport zoning board?
I'm talking about the airport commission.
Airport commission to see around the zones that they don't have to allow.
No, they don't have to do a damn thing. But then neither does the city of Fairfax because they aimed a runway at us. And now they want to determine, maybe we'll want to build 600 homes out there and maybe all the furnaces are gonna create the subject, I don't know. And I don't know what pilots they're talking to. Are they talking to local Cessna pilots? Are they talking to commercial airline pilots? They didn't say. But we personally asked them to have a Fairfax representative on board. And it's never happened. And this, all this conversation that we're having, yeah, all this conversation that we're having here now could have taken place there.
Question. Any other question? And so, as I talked about earlier, if you provided your email addresses too, I will send out an email, again, unofficial, not a poll, anything fancy, if anybody wants to audit it, I have all the emails. And then at the council meeting on the 14th, I'll do one reason, what we have. If you've got anything that you want turned in, it sounds like Cynthia needs that information so she can have it in the packet. So if you've got something you'd like to get turned in that you want to talk about at the council meeting, I invite everybody to attend the council meeting. See what's going on.
I have one other question. What time is your coffee shop open?
7 o'clock.
I think that we should all stop and. Right now, then let's do it.
Yeah, I recommend the apple churros.
Oh, I don't have any of those for tomorrow.
So.
I had a bagel, coffee on Monday.
So yeah, so thank you very much, everybody, for coming. If there's nothing else, we do appreciate it. Thanks for your time. Thank you for your input.
Thanks, Shane.
I'll stick around.
Thank you, Shane.
I got a question.